Hello, welcome to HowtoDandD. It's the last live stream for the week, and the topic is power gamers, and I'm talking about Playstyle, and that's really where my head is at. I had planned something else, but this is what I'm going to talk about today. So make sure you have some food, some drink, make sure you are comfortable. I'm going to say, oh, hello, how are you doing, Dinomancer, Nacho Man, both are patrons, and then we have Raging Wyvern. Hello, welcome to the live stream. Okay. Oh. Apparently I've got to press that button. And I'm going to put up a poll. Feel free to take part in the poll. If you don't want to, that's fine too. Now, I had been holding off. The reason I'm late is because I was holding off because my house has still got people in it. And I was hoping I could wait until it was quieter, but it's not going to. They're still organising themselves, so we are going to proceed. And yeah, hopefully my glasses don't fog up, because it's very, very humid in this office right now. Anyway, this video, by the way, this presentation is for players who are power gamers and who aren't power gamers, and this video is, or presentation is also for dungeon masters who are either power gamers or have power gamers in their group. So it is intended to be for everybody, okay? So if you were expecting a particular bent on this, no. That's why I don't have a sensational thumbnail or a provocative clickbaity title, because that's not what I'm trying to do here. Okay, let's cycle over and we'll get started in a second. I think I'm just about ready to go. It looks like we're almost there. All right. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, because I usually do talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And hey, today it's not about Marvel, it's about power gamers. I'm going to talk about the power gamer and their play style in Dungeons and Dragons. And frankly, it does permeate into other types of games as well. So it's not like it's set in one type of game system, although I do think it probably exists more in Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, and any kind of clone of Dungeons and Dragons. I think that sort of tends to wind up being something you see more there than anywhere else. That's been my experience, but that's beside the point. So today's presentation, none of this advice is exclusively for the Dungeon Master, and every adult in a gaming group, and I specify adult, every adult in a gaming group is responsible for managing themselves and managing the relationship of the people in that party or group, not just the Dungeon Master. I know a lot of people voice this differently, but I will make it clear. If you are adults in a group, you are all responsible, not just the Dungeon Master. Now, if you're dealing with kids or teenagers, that's a different kettle of fish. They're still developing and maturing. Everyone usually has a combination. Like every single person who ever plays Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, everyone usually has a combination of different play styles. They're not usually playing a role-play game with just one play style involved. There's usually multiple play styles involved, not just one. And also the following suggestions, recommendations regarding power gamers, they're all general aspects of a power gamer. They're not absolute. This is not to be taken as gospel. Okay, these are trends, and they are in many ways stereotypes, but they tend to be the kinds of behaviors you see and the kinds of reactions you get. And so it's good to understand that we're not talking about an absolute here. Now, the power gamer playstyle. What is the power gamer playstyle? Well, essentially the power gamer playstyle exists in many video games. Like many people playing video games will have a tendency to have that power gamer playstyle. But also, since we are playing tabletop role-play games, the tabletop role-playing game community tends to have a lot of this. And as I've said, Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder tabletop role-playing games, because they are, and any kind of clone of D&D, they tend to attract power gamers more to that rule system. Why is that? Because they have a lot of rules. Okay, power gamers are drawn to a lot of rules. That's what they focus on. A power gamer thrives on gaining levels and loves cool abilities that come with those new levels. So that's really where their heart is at. Power gamers defeat monsters primarily to take their treasure and use their stuff against future enemies. That's what they're trying to do. The story and roleplay aspect are usually secondary, okay, compared to something like actions and awesome abilities and magic items for a power gamer. Now, when I say this, you've got to remember, as I said, power gamers and any person is going to be a combination of different styles, but this tends to be sort of where their head's at. Most players have a little power gamer in them, okay? Most people who are playing the game have a little bit of power gamer in them. It may not be a lot, but there's a little bit there. I will also say not everybody is like this. Some people have no desire for any kind of power in the game. A couple of elements that are part of the fun of playing Dungeons and Dragons as a game is accumulating power, but also using that power to accomplish astonishing deeds and performing great feats. So there is an aspect to the game where we are kind of looking for more power out of it. We are looking to change the environment we're playing in. There's actually nothing wrong with enjoying power, magic items, and special abilities in a game. It's actually fine. So what do power gamers like? What do they actually like out of the game? Well, they like to optimize a character. They'll be going to optimize not just the character's attributes, but mostly it's going to be about combat performance. This is the fun for a power gamer, but it's not necessarily the only focus. You can change that focus. Initially, power gamers tend to focus on the one aspect that has the most amount of rules, and the most amount of rules, Dungeons and Dragons, revolves around combat. So therefore, combat performance is a big aspect, but it won't necessarily be the only focus. You can train them out of that sort of thing. It's common for power gamers to pore over supplements from different books for better character options. Okay, so they're the ones who'll probably be going out and buying all the splat books in your group. Or if they're not buying the splat books, they're online searching for all that information for free. Generally, power gamers spend less time on story and roleplay elements, generally. A power gamer prefers combat to other kinds of encounters, because that's where, as I said, the bulk of the Dungeons and Dragons rules exist. Also, I would say that power gamers often prefer to be referred to as an optimizer. This is to avoid the negative stereotypes that power gaming has attached to it. And there are quite a few negative stereotypes and aspects attached to it. Some for good reason and some for bad, aren't legitimate. So, and then of course you've got to understand not every power gamer operates exactly the same way, and you can have power gamers that have healthy communication styles and really unhealthy communication styles. A major driving force for a power gamer is survival, succeeding and winning combat, but also winning the game, which is sort of part of the reason why they build a powerful character in the first place. Now, this might be a result of being trained by the dungeon master or the games that they're playing, because they are very deadly games. They need to make sure that they can have a character capable of surviving that game. The version of the game will affect that as well. There's lots of different aspects to why they will build to survive, succeed, and win. Now, how do we go about engaging your power gamer in the game that you're running, whether you are a player or a dungeon master? Now, a lot of this is going to be focusing more on the dungeon master rather than the players, but not exclusively. If you stress story rewards, such as quest experience points, this is a very constructive way to impact the power gamers' motivations. This is a huge motivation for them. Acquiring experience points is a very easy way for them to figure out if they are getting closer to the next level, because the next level means more stuff. Using a desired magic items such as the adventure hook, tying it in will ensure the power gamer is actually interested. What you don't want to do is make the magic item a single item that everybody will want, and the power gamer has now got to compete with the other player characters for that magic item they really want. That will cause problems. Power gamers respond positively to most rewards. So most of the rewards that you can give out in your game, they will respond very well to. Experience points, even milestones, if you explain how the milestones are going to be working, they like that sort of thing. Character levels, so leveling up, treasure, magic items, equipment, story benefits. It kind of sounds like any person playing the game, does it not? Facilitating access to new options. If you can give them access to new options, abilities, and powers, this is something that a power gamer craves. They're always looking for the next thing. Power gamers also love to play test. Sorry. Power gamers also love to play test new material such as the Unearthed Arcana, homebrew content that you might have made yourself as a dungeon master or a player in a group, and third-party options. Any kind of third-party player character options. They're really going to be interested if they're well designed and they're strong. Okay, if they're not well designed and they're confusing and they're not very strong, they're probably not going to be that interested. Include encounters that emphasize the player character's attributes, because power gamers are trying to be useful. It's not like they're trying to be the best at the table, although sometimes that is the case. In fact, quite often it can be the case, but they are trying to be useful. They consider that their impact as part of the group is important, and they take that quite seriously. Allow a power gamer to rebuild their character. Like, one of the simplest ways to solve a lot of your problems is if dungeon masters allow them to rebuild their character outside of game time, so that they can try new features and combinations because they will have already thought out a lot of the stuff in advance, but they can only theorize so much. In practice, it's going to be different. So if you allow them to test and trial things, eventually you will see a lot of change in your character and their character building, and eventually it will stabilize once they figure out exactly what they're after. That's what my experience has been so far. Okay. Ensure power gamers don't do the following things. It's really important that there are certain things you do not want power gamers to start engaging in or doing at your table, because it will wreck the experience for the other players. It will wreck the experience for the dungeon master. It will wreck the experience for you. And frankly, it will wreck the experience for them, because the backlash against somebody who is power gaming will be quite extensive if they start doing these sorts of things. So here are the things I'm going to say you don't want them doing at the table. Avoid a power gamer becoming a lot more powerful than the other player characters. They're always going to be more powerful than everybody else. But if they're a lot more powerful than every other player character at the table, that's a problem. Ask them to make a less powerful character, because a dungeon master can't create combat encounters that will match a wide breadth of difficulty without causing problems. You just can't do it. It's impossible. Stop power gamers dominating all combat encounters is a difficult thing to do, if not impossible for a dungeon master to achieve. So first off, just ignore that. That is not going to work. What you can do that will help is you can require multiple objectives so that one player cannot achieve everything. That means that instead of we just going to fight the monsters and kill them and whoever and survive, you put in some other things that have to take place during that combat, things they have to achieve outside of just reducing the monster's hit points. If you do that, then the power gamer will have to rely on other people to achieve things, and you'll spread out the focus of that combat. A power gamer will try to make, will actually try to take more than their fair share of treasure. So because a power gamer is probably going to try to take more than they should compared to everybody else, whatever their reason, it doesn't matter, okay? Their reason is beside the point. Fair share is a fair share. So ask the group to determine a reasonable allocation of the resources. As a dungeon master, do not do this yourself because you wind up setting yourself up as being the bad person. Okay? Instead, you put this on peer pressure is far more efficient and effective than one person saying it has to be done this way. You put that on the group. The group determines that. That way they are going to be able to affect and control the behavior of the power gamer. The group needs to ensure that the power gamer doesn't take or acquire all the best magic items, because it's quite possible they might do that. So you need to let the group make that decision, and how they allocate it and do it in a fair and equitable way is up to them. You will maybe suggest that, you can suggest some solutions for doing that, some strategies, but you let the group do that. A power gamer has a tendency to treat other player characters as their lackeys, like they are just their little sidekicks that follow them around, and they are the super being, the superhero. So remind the power gamer that this is a team game, okay? And it's important that they understand that everybody's important on the team, not just them, and that the other players' characters are not their lackeys, okay? They're not going to be carrying their stuff. They're not going to perform actions in any part of the game that allows them to use all of their features to their maximum efficiency. It's not about them. It has to be about everybody. Okay. Arguing with the other players and the dungeon master over how rules are going to work is something that power gamers are prone to doing. It's just one of those things. Now, you could say this is a rules lawyer, but power gamers will do this, okay? Because they're so tied to everything needs to work to the rules, because that was what their character was based on in the first place. When you change the rules, it upsets their calculations. So they are going to be wanting the rules to be run the way they have interpreted them and the way that they are written in the book. And if you're not doing it that way, they will argue with you. Don't let this happen, because it will go on for a very long time and you'll wind up playing no Dungeons and Dragons. Instead, you'll be arguing about rules with them. Now, bossy power gamers will try to override the Dungeon Master. And look, I would say amongst the nerdy community, there are probably a lot of very arrogant and bossy and self-important individuals. And amongst them, it's not just the power gamer, okay? There are other styles of play that do exactly the same thing. But when you get a bossy power gamer, they will try to override the Dungeon Master. And the Dungeon Master needs to have the ability to make rulings. They need to have the ability to have house rules. And they need to be able to be given the ability to interpret the rules differently to how the power gamer interpreted them, okay? Because that's the Dungeon Master's running it. So what you need to do when a power gamer tries to override the Dungeon Master is you need to set some expectations about their behavior. That this is not acceptable in the group. That they are not to go and argue and try to override the Dungeon Master's rulings and the way that they've interpreted the rules. The only time that they can do this is when they are acting as the Dungeon Master. That's the only time they get to do that. Because they're not going to be arguing with themselves, are they? Okay? So there is no argument. So that's the expectation. The only time you get to override anything is when you are the Dungeon Master. That's it. A power gamer can overwhelm a Dungeon Master fairly efficiently and effectively with different player options. Like they're going to want to access as many different player options as possible. So a Dungeon Master, you have to set some limits within your group. If you don't, you will become overwhelmed. You will not be able to keep up with everything, and you won't be able to manage the whole situation. So please set some limits, okay? The group shouldn't allow a power gamer to criticize another player's character build. This is really bad, okay? Anytime anybody does this, if you are criticizing another person's character build, that's a bad thing. And unfortunately, there's a tendency for power gamers to do this, okay? If they have not optimized their character, if it's suboptimal in some way, if you feel like they've made a mistake in terms of their character build, do not criticize them. And don't let power gamers do it. And it's not up to the Dungeon Master to do that. Everybody who's playing the game should be doing this, not just the Dungeon Master. Okay, now that we've done let's just rein in the power gamer, let's talk about the positive power gamer traits, because they do have some. Like all player styles, there are positive elements to them. Your group can overcome challenges more efficiently and effectively and have fun in the process if the group has a power gamer in it. So in many respects, it's good to at least have at least one power gamer in your group, because they will ensure that the group doesn't do anything hugely silly. They will have calculated the probability. They will have figured out what sort of things people need to be able to do efficiently. They may be trying to give you instructions on how to do things, but they're good at setting up plans. Okay, if they have given enough time, they can work out a pretty good plan for a group. Power gamers have extensive rules knowledge, since they must know the rules to take advantage of them. So you don't have to worry about them not knowing how the rules work as a Dungeon Master or as another player. They will know how they work, or at least to their interpretation. The power gamer can serve as a valuable resource as a result, saving you from having to look up the rules that you don't remember. Because you can ask them, they'll probably be able to quote what page it's on as well in some cases. Not always, but at least the chapter. A power gamer can tell you if a character option is more powerful than another feature and why. And in some cases, as a Dungeon Master or a player, they can tell you which character options are overpowered and probably should not be in the game. Now, power gamers always like to have more power, but they also acknowledge that there are certain things that you put into a game that actually make it unplayable. Not all power gamers will see this. You'll probably find that this is a product of a power gamer who's been doing it for a while, so they have some experience. So there are some positives. Now, how do you seat a power gamer at your table? There's a couple of different ways you can go about doing this, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So seating for a power gamer at a table, now that is provided they will allow you to do that. They might not allow you to seat them at the table, okay? And if they won't, then just leave it alone. Seating the gamer near to you if you plan to use them as a ready rules reference. If you're going to do that, let them know that, look, I don't know all the rules. I want you to sit close to me so that I can ask you questions about the rules. Now, they may say, no, I don't want to do that, but I'm happy to look up rules when you need them, or let you know what those rules are. And you know, if you can get them sitting next to you, great. If you can't, you can't. But if you tell them that's what you're wanting to do, then they usually aren't going to have too much of a problem with that. Similarly, a power gamer can bring a new player up to speed if they sit together. Now, you need to ask, because sometimes power gamers don't like doing this. You have to ask the power gamer, are they willing to help a new player? And if they say yes, great. And if they say no, they're not really that interested, they want to just play their own character and do their own thing, then just leave them be. Be sure the power gamer doesn't dictate the new player character's actions. Okay, that's a tendency. They might decide, no, you should do this because this is the most optimal, most powerful thing to do in this situation. This makes far more sense. Why would you do anything else? And there are no choices. And then suddenly your new player is not making any choices whatsoever. Instead, it is better to make it clear to them that you're just to explain to them what's going on, not to tell them what they have to do, and to allow them to make mistakes. As soon as you start saying stuff like that, power gamers sort of like, okay, let them make mistakes. I can kind of understand that. It might be a bit hard sometimes for them to manage because they don't like to make mistakes, but you have to say something like this. The power gamer should only help the new player understand what's going on. That's it. Power gamers sometimes downplay the importance of story and role playing. Not always, but it can be a tendency. So you might like to place them near people who are an actor or a storyteller in Playstyle. There is another Playstyle, the actor, which I'll explain in future videos, and then there's the storyteller Playstyle. And again, they're actually a good compromise in many respects. So the proximity of these different playstyles can often yield or produce a nice synergy, quite a productive synergy, in fact. But sometimes it also leads to conflict depending on the personality of the players. So if it doesn't work, break it up, okay? But it can work sometimes. So I'm going to put it out there as a suggestion. Okay, designing a power gamer encounter type. Like when you're designing your encounters and you're designing around a power gamer, how do you do this so that you don't cause yourself a whole lot of headache? Well, power gamers optimize their characters for combat as a default. As I said, because the rules tend to be revolving around combat. Not because the game of Dungeons & Dragons is in fact a tactical combat simulator. That's not true. The only reason there's lots and lots of rules for Dungeons & Dragons is because that's what you need rules for. Everything else that's part of the game, you really don't need rules for. So as a default, they tend to gravitate towards that. If you establish in your campaign as a dungeon master that you will be featuring things such as exploration, traps, puzzles, social interactions, skill challenges, if you know what that means, and other types of encounters, a die-hard power gamer will optimize their character for all of those challenges, not just combat. If you make it clear that your game is going to incorporate a lot of stuff and not just combat, and they know what's coming, they will optimize for everything that you're going to throw at them. Okay? Because that's how they work. Power gamers don't generally find easy combats satisfying, so throwing an easy combat at them isn't going to be satisfying at all. If their character is so powerful that everything you put forward to them is getting crushed, they won't like that either. They actually prefer to have a powerful character and still have the encounter be hard or deadly. Okay? They like to be challenged. So when you're giving them combat, challenge them. Any kind of thing, even outside of combat, okay, whatever it is, be traps, puzzles, so forth, many times they like to be challenged. They don't like it easy. Do not just increase the combat encounter difficulty to accommodate a power gamer. Now, the problem with increasing the combat encounter difficulty, because the power gamer is got a very powerful character and finding the encounters easier, is the rest of the player characters will struggle to survive. They won't be able to keep up. Instead, include, as I said, secondary objectives outside of we just kill the monsters. You've got to do that. You can increase the threat directed at the power gamer's character. Okay, as a general rule, they don't mind you directing more firepower on their character compared to everybody else. And in fact, in many cases, they will welcome it. I wouldn't say that every single power gamer is exactly the same, but you will generally find they prefer that over you making the encounter so difficult that they're the only one who survives every single battle. I recommend not creating consistently deadly combat encounters. You don't want to do that. You don't want to consistently create deadly combat encounters or traps or challenges that result in character death. Now, if you are getting a lot of character death because you've cranked everything up, all it will do is exaggerate the problem that the power gamer has, and they will double down on their key behavior, which is to create a more powerful character. So if you consistently throw deadly combat encounters or traps or challenges at them and characters die, then they will see that as I have to change what I'm doing. I must make something more powerful. They may in fact go to all the other players and say, you have to make something more powerful because we're not getting where we need to be. And that will create a new set of problems for you. So just something to bear in mind. Okay. Playing to a power gamer's strengths. It's actually really helpful to do this. Let the power gamer from time to time shine by showing how their character can excel. They like to have the spotlight sometimes. They like people to know that what they've done is they've achieved something quite significant with their character. So let that happen. Most people playing a character kind of like this sort of thing anyway. Power gamers are no different. The power gamer can plan out the best way to overcome a monster or a challenge of any kind if the Dungeon Master warns them about what's coming. This is actually a good strategy. If you're worried that the group cannot deal with a situation, if you warn the power gamer about what's coming, however you want to do that, whether it's metagamed or not metagamed, or you drop foreshadowing or you drop hints, the power gamer will plan. And if you give them time to do so, they will do it. Okay, outside of game time, an entire week from one session to the next is a good amount of time. That's more than sufficient time for them to figure it out. So try it out, see how it works. Now let's talk about exploiting the power gamer's weaknesses. Identifying the weaknesses of a power gamer's character and designing encounters and monsters to target those vulnerable spots from time to time, not all the time, from time to time, but not consistently, is actually a good idea. Create situations that require checks that the power gamer has the poorest character skills or abilities. Now you can do that occasionally, like actually have things there that they won't do well, and they will rebuild their character and design it so that it can manage those sorts of things. Now whether they supplement it with something else other than just character build, they may find another way of doing that. You don't want to punish a power gamer or try to defeat their character. Rather, what you're trying to do is offer a broad range of challenges, significant challenges that they find rewarding. Testing a character's weaknesses encourages a power gamer to improve their playstyle. They will make adjustments. Now, this technique motivates a power gamer to acquire items and find other ways of shoring up their weaknesses, because if they can't build, you can't build your character necessarily to cover everything. It's actually impossible. Power gamers know this, so they will look for other ways of filling in the gaps and shoring up any kind of weakness that they have. They will also try to do that with the rest of the party sometimes as well. Learning to rely on another player character in the group is really healthy for a power gamer. It's not something they gravitate towards straight away. It's not something they necessarily like, but it's really healthy for them even if they don't like it. Okay? So you should definitely have that occur. If you can build it in such a way that that happens, great. Okay? Because it will change the way they operate, and in a really good way. Make villains learn the power gamer's tactics. So you really want to look at any kind of villain that you have. If you can have that villain learn the power gamer's tactics, that's great. But this requires you to manage to be able to keep a recurring villain alive long enough over the course of your long adventure, hopefully, or campaign, so that you can have the villain after each encounter understand how the party works, but in particular how the strongest individual in the party, the power gamer's character, and so they will adopt different tactics. Okay, this shows that the monsters are dynamic, and when you start showing that to a power gamer, they understand that they will get bored. If they have the same strategy and tactic over and over again, they get bored. So changing things up is a good thing. So it's always good over time, if they keep interacting with the same villain, to change your tactics. The power gamer will be challenged to explore new tactics, but also one of the things that often can occur is if a power gamer has found a specific strategy and tactic that seems to be a trump card, they'll use the same strategy over and over again. Now, as I said, that they will generally eventually get bored, but initially they will be quite pleased with themselves. But it won't be rewarding for you as a dungeon master or for the rest of the group, because the outcome will always be the same, no matter what. Now, my final key points on power gamers. These are points that I want to make, and I want to make it clear because they are fairly important. power gamers don't like being called munchkins. Sometimes they don't like being called min-maxers. Quite often, they don't like being called power gamers because the term has a really strong negative connotation within the gaming community. Now, some power gamers don't care. I've got power gamers in my group and they accept it, they understand it. They don't care about the semantics. You could call them a power gamer, you could call them a munchkin, you could call them a min-maxer, you could call them an optimizer. They accept that as a general rule, most people lump all of that together and that's their definition. It's the same person as far as they're concerned, the same type of person's play. They don't differentiate it. I know some people who want to always be referred to as an optimizer and never be considered a power gamer, a munchkin, or a min-maxer. And look, the terminology keeps changing over time, and the words are not important. It's how people respond to the stereotype and the category. That's important. The name itself is absolutely unimportant. The only word that's probably really heavily connotated and quite hurtful is probably munchkin. Munchkin is a pretty low word to be using. Okay, power gamer, min-maxer, not so bad. Now, if you want to get on their good side, use the name that they like. Okay, right. The older and more mature your power gamer gets, so the older they are, the more they have been playing, the more mature they become over time, the more versatile their playstyle becomes. Their playstyle will develop to a point that it appears they have multiple playstyles. In fact, you may not even notice that they are a power gamer. Okay? And as I said, everybody has multiple playstyles, but sometimes people have a playstyle that's very strongly weighted towards one thing. This has been my experience at my table. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 people in my group who are all power gamers. All of them, almost all of them, about 3 out of the 4 are dungeon masters as well. And what that means is because we've been playing for such a long time, some of them have changed the way they do things. They understand that their play approach doesn't work for everybody at the table. And so they have adjusted. Some of them are more focused on role play now. Some people prefer more the style of play. Some people in my group are now looking at the game in terms of, well, I've built all the powerful characters. Can I make a unoptimized, suboptimal character and make it work? That's their new challenge. So yeah, don't get caught up with the fact that you think that they are always going to stay and play the same way, because that's actually not true. I can assure you, I'm 51 and I have a number of people in my group who are in their late 20s right through to their mid 50s, and those power gamers, they have changed the way they play. I'm hoping that this video was useful to you, and this either helps you as a player or as a dungeon master navigate the play style, the power gamer. And if it has, great. So if you have any questions and feedback, please use the comment section. Thank you for watching my video, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, just let me drink some water and then we'll go to chat. I haven't been watching chat while I've been doing this. I've been reading from my notes and I've been trying to take my time with it. So you will probably notice that I've taken quite a lot of time. Why is that? Because I started with 1 page of notes and I wound up with 4 pages of notes. I've hopefully have not repeated myself too much. I think I offered new information each time, and we'll see how we go. I don't know how people feel about this sort of topic. This is the video I wanted to present, compared to some of the other things I could have said. And if I had made a title, like a video title to this that said something like how to deal with shitty power gamer playstyle, or how to deal with power gamers that suck, I'm sure more people would watch. But it's a clickbait, and it's it's such an awful way to. I mean, if you're really going to have a good positive message in your video, why start it with a rubbish title? So the thumbnail is not clickbaity, and the title is not clickbaity, quite deliberately on my part. Okay. All right. So let's go through the poll here. I haven't had a chance to look at the chat really, people. Do you have a power gamer in your group, or are you a power gamer? Yes. So we don't have to differentiate you. Okay, whether you are a power gamer or there's somebody else in your group that's got a power gamer, it's beside the point. So 47% out of 15 votes. So almost half of you. So it's not an uncommon thing to happen, right? Okay. No, 7%. Okay. Sometimes 27%. Okay. Just watching, 20%, don't want to get involved in the discussion. And that's why that response is there, people. And that's fine. Okay? I'm all good with this. All right, so let's go through here reasonably quickly. Dinomancer, hello, how are you? Patron, thank you for being here. Nacho Man, also a patron. I think I said this before. Also a patron, thank you. The best way to support me doing this sort of thing, all the notes for this on the Power Gamer Playstyle is going up onto Patreon. I'll make up a document. It'll probably get uploaded sometime today, I hope. And you can then download it and use it as a reference tool. Okay? It's compiled from many different locations and my own personal experience and a lot of research. But if I were to tell you where the research is, and you may be shocked. You will probably be quite shocked. Anyway, Raging Wyvern, hello. I think I said hi to you already. Sometimes I'm a power gamer. Dynamancer says sometimes I'm a power gamer. And you have one horrible power gamer in the group. Well, they can be trained out of that. It is something. If they see, power gaming in itself is not the problem. It's the other behaviors that can be attached with power gaming that sometimes are more the issue rather than the actual power gaming process. This is not intended to be an angry live stream, believe it or not. I am not venting frustrations, people. I have a group, and a lot of them are power gamers, and I get along with them fine. And we've been playing for a long time. And hopefully touching on the clickbait nature of D&D YouTube's vids these days. That I am. There's way too much of it. Please, people, you need to be careful about some of the content people are putting out. I'm seeing more and more of it. The tabloid style stuff is crazy, and it brings up a lot of emotive stuff when you start talking about power gamers. So yeah, how to deal massive damage, clickbait. Yeah, for power gamers, because power gamers are probably watching more videos than even the Dungeon Master. Dungeon Masters watch a lot of YouTube videos. We know this. This is why there's a lot of videos out there for Dungeon Masters. Power gamers would also watch a lot of videos looking to see if somebody has said something that they might be able to use. But truthfully, I've found that the power gamers at my table, they don't like videos. They don't like watching Trent Monk. Is it Trent Monk? They don't like watching any of the stuff from Dungeon Dudes or is it One Shot something? I can't remember what it is. There's a whole bunch of them. What they prefer is it to be written down because they can read faster than they can watch a video. So power gamers would pretty much prefer to just give me the information on a piece of paper because I can read faster than I can watch the video, even if I speed it up. Promoting new D&D players to start turning up up to 11 instead of learning the very basics, practical application. I'm not quite sure. You lost me there. Sorry. Yes, so power gamers are not the only ones prone to hoarding all the magic items, by the way. There are other play styles, and if this does well, I will cover some of the other play styles as well, and not just the power gamer. If this does all right, I will consider to making it a series of videos, because there are actually quite a few different play styles involved in the game that you play. Dan, hello Dan. Dan is a patron, a long-standing patron, and also a moderator. Thank you for being here. So do you think some classes are more suitable for the power gamer's playstyle, such as the cleric maybe? I think anything out of Tasha's is probably going to suit a power gamer more. But look, I mean, the longer you have a game system, Wizards of the Coast has always done this. They did this with version 3, did it with 4, they're doing it with 5. They just put more stuff out because that's how they make money, is to convince you need to buy more stuff. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that there's a particular. I think multi-classing and feats is a big issue for power gamers, because if you tell them that you can't multi-class and you can't use feats, because multi-classing is broken as hell, it's a no-brainer. You would be better to multi-class than to take a feat in many respects, because you just get more. More means you don't have to try to fill up all those little weaknesses that you had before that were left behind, whereas you can only shore up so many weaknesses with a feat. Okay. Skid Motor. Hello, Skid Motor. How are you doing? Hello, Charles Butler. How are you doing, mate? I really wish someone had explained this to me 2 years ago when I started DMing and had no clue what to do about the power gamer style of play. So Charles, the reason you don't get told this is because the vast majority of people on YouTube and on the internet don't know how to do that. They don't really know how to deal with power gamers. They really don't. And experience is a good thing. If you are a power gamer over time, or you've played with a lot of power gamers, that's a good way of learning. But your other problem is that you'd think that this information would be in this book. This is, so Charles and everybody else, this book should have information in here on how to deal with the different play styles and what a dungeon master and the other players should be trying to do to make it possible for them to be able to play and interact with other people. Whether it be a power gamer, an actor, a storyteller, and oh my God, the instigator. And to give you guys an idea, one of my play styles is the instigator. I am an instigator. And if anything is going to cause trouble, it's an instigator, okay? But we'll get to that some other day, maybe. We'll see how that goes. But there's nothing really in here, so you get nothing. So that's one book that should have it, and it doesn't. Makes it a bad book, in my opinion. So, of course, you get a whole lot of people making videos talking about stuff they really don't know anything about. Now, if you're one of the few people who have played Dungeons & Dragons 4E and bought the Dungeon Master Guide for 4E, would you believe it? This book has a lot of really good information. I wouldn't say this is the best Dungeon Master Guide in the world, but it's certainly, with regard to explaining how to deal with playstyle, this is better than the 5e book. And since it did such a good job, they did an even better job in some respects, and maybe not, well, at least they had more words, I guess. They did it again when they did the 4E Dungeon Master Guide for 2E. The second one, not 2E, for... So 4E has 4 really good Dungeon Master Guides that actually explain how to deal with this. Now, you wouldn't know that unless you'd played that game. I've played that game as a player, and I've been the Dungeon Master. And I've got the books, so I know this. But it's not, alone it's not enough. Okay. Skid Motor, how are you doing here? The power gamers have a tendency to run the other player characters. They can very much wind up doing this. I usually intervene to tell them to let them play their character, but I hate the committee thing. Yeah. Yep, it's definitely something that can crop up. I have no power, and I have no power gamers, but it's all right. Yep. Well, look, you know, you don't have to have a power gamer in the group. It's nice if you do, but you don't have to have one. My positive power gamer trait is that he owns every source book on D&D Beyond and shares them with me. Yes, Nacho Man, that is something you will find as power gamers will buy product. Probably more than any other player. Power gamers will buy product. They will buy books. The biggest issue with the power gamer to me as a DM is the power gap between the power gamer and, say, a role play game or casual type player. Fred, how do you usually address this issue? Do you know one of the probably the easiest way to deal with that, skid motor, is have a chat with them. I mean, I did say just get them to make a less powerful character. They can do that. They're quite capable. If you change the way you run your game and you run less combat and you're doing a lot of other stuff as well, and you tell them that's what I'm going to do, they will and you allow them to rebuild. You must let them rebuild, people. If you do that, they have the room to actually change their style. And they will adjust and accommodate the group more. And they will accommodate your game more. So this is why I do it, is to stop people from going on to suicide rants. Power gamers will throw themselves to the wolves and let their character be destroyed sometimes. Sometimes they'll just say, I'm going to retire my character and start a new character. But they will only do that if they're not going to be hugely penalized by doing something like that. And this is because they want to keep trying stuff. So just let them retrain. And I know you're thinking the narrative will be broken. It doesn't make sense. Who cares? Does it really matter that much to you? If it does, it does. I just don't give a toss anymore. Okay? I don't care about the story. I don't care about the adventure. I don't care about what I've prepared. I only care, for me, as a dungeon master and a player, the only thing I care about is the integrity and the relationship of the group of players. The people are more important than anything else. And once you realize that, you're doing yourself a lot of favors, I tell you. Makes life simpler, so much simpler. So, Skid Motor, you let me know if if that answered the question. I'm pretty sure I have explained it in my presentation. Oh, is that a super chat I see? I'm scrolling down, I can see something coming up. None of my players own any books and I provide everything, so I have 2 players' handbooks around the table. Dan, that doesn't surprise me, Dan. I believe that. Okay, interesting. Well, I'm glad you like the topic, Dan. And hey, thank you for the super chat. Fred deserves more patrons, folks. Give him some love over there. Yes, I would be really good if you did. Patreon is much kinder to me than YouTube. I can tell you now that even though I live stream 6 days a week and put out 1 or 2 videos every week, and it doesn't seem to get me anywhere. So yes, Patreon is the way to make sure that I'm a lot healthier in my mindset, frankly. Anyway, hello Seeker, how are you? So Seeker is also supports the channel in a different way, and thank you, Seeker. I learned the hard way, don't let anyone play a wizard if they don't own the player's handbook. Nightmare. Yes. Yeah, no, I like playing wizards, so yes, it would be a nightmare, because you need all the spells, right? Yeah, it's not unusual. Dan throws a lot of money my way, okay? And it was doing so even when he wasn't playing the game. So, yeah. All right. So, yeah, I don't power game either. However, I don't want my character concept to be suck either. My goal is to have my characters unique and hopefully memorable. Another thing you can do with power gamers is you can get them to help the other players build their characters. The only problem is they will try to get them to build their character as a powered up character. So that you can wind up creating a bit of a monster there as well, if suddenly everybody's doing it. But they can certainly help, particularly if people are struggling, understanding how to build their character, they can certainly help with that. Yes, you get a lot on my Patreon, people. I've been looking at other people, some of the big YouTubers' Patreons, and I'm thinking, good Lord, okay. There are some people, I mean, look, the DM's Lear, Luke has got an army of people who produce his magazine. His magazine looks very impressive to me. But yeah, I was looking at other people who are like, what are you doing? What are you doing, people? Anyway, You got a question here for me, Skid Motor. You noted about targeting power gamers. So on other time, okay. So on other things, do you target them? Yeah. Well, target. Look, you don't do it all the time. Do you target them for the ones who get robbed? Uh, well, look. If you're gonna rob the player characters, you might as well share that around. I wouldn't target them for that. If you target them for that, that's a problem for any player. It doesn't matter whether you're a power gamer or you've got a different play style, or you're an actor, instigator, a slayer, or whatever, or a watcher. So I've just rattled off a whole lot of different play styles, people. I know you don't understand what I'm talking about. That's all right. We'll get to there someday. Probably not today, though. So, yeah, if you're robbing the same character all the time, I mean, that in itself is a bit of a problem. Do you know what I mean? Because players hate that. Hate it with a curse. Or cursed to some sort of balance thing. You mean including cursed magic items or giving them a curse? Yeah, that can help. Particularly if you're dealing with a magic item that's really powerful. If you put a curse with it, they then have to consider the trade-off. And they will weigh up whether it seems like a good idea for them or not. So when I say focus in and target the power gamer, I do mean direct more firepower at them during combat. Okay? In particular, that's your biggest issue. You can do it in other aspects of the game, but it's really unimportant. Your biggest problem with a power gamer is during battles, during combat. They can take more heat. They will have more hit points. They will put out more damage. They will hit more often. They have abilities that will change the battlefield dynamic. They can deal with it. So that's all right. Most of the time, they will be fine with that sort of thing. Dinomancer, this is fun and a victory in failure. Yeah, power gamers do not realize this truism. So, look, I will say it again, always try to build your encounters around more than one objective. Not just kill monsters. Okay. Fred 51. I'm 51. Yes, I'm 51. I am aging out of YouTube. You must have a good night cream. You look good, buddy. Well, in 4K, you can see every blemish on my face. I'm having a good day. Dungeons and Chronics. Hello, how are you doing? The Super Saiyan Guru and the thumbnail, that's got to get some clicks alone. Well, yes, I couldn't think of anything. I was trying to think of what represents power gaming or a powerful character, and Goku was the only thing I could think of. I think it's the only thing that stands out. I wouldn't say it's a clickbait thumbnail. You'll let me know if I'm wrong. Power gamers are DMs in waiting. So Jared makes a very good point. One of the things a bit of terrifying as a player to have a power gamer who's a dungeon master, because the battles will be quite tough. But they're true. It's true. Power gamers know the rules. They understand it. They don't understand necessarily party dynamics and people that well, but they can. You give them enough time and they'll figure it out. So they are DMs in waiting. Absolutely, I agree. Norok, hello. Also a patron. How are you doing? Thank you for coming. Okay. You want more likes on the stream? Look, I don't. It's not the tabloid stuff, people. Like the tabloid stuff right now is, what is it? There is a Dungeon Master crisis or a shortage. Dungeon Master crisis or shortage right now. There's always been one. Well, so I've seen everybody doing videos on that. What was the other thing that I saw floating around on the internet, on YouTube? You bunch of wankers for putting that stuff up, and frankly, what was it? Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro doesn't think they're making enough money off, or hasn't monetized D&D enough. D&D is not monetized enough. So, like, we're going to take more of your money. And, like, that's not quite the message, people. But it got people to watch those videos. Frankly, though, people making those videos, you are cads. Cads. I'm going to call you out and say it for what it is. It's low tabloid material. Like, you got in your views, well done. But God, I'm not watching your stuff. Anyway, Dinomancer. I'm one person who's going to care. It's the age of some players too. Yes, age does make a difference. Natural for 15 to 21-year-olds, min-max hard. Yeah. So Norak says, I am a storyteller and a slayer first. Yeah. So followed by power gamer. So if people want to know what my play style is, I'm an instigator. I'm not going to explain completely, but basically I make things happen. Sometimes for the good and sometimes for the bad. If I'm a player, that tends to be how I do things. I have to really rein that in a lot. I'm also a slayer. I can power game, kind of, but slayers just like to kill stuff. So that's me. That means I have to rein myself in and let people talk through a situation when there's an opportunity to do that. But when things aren't going well, mate, I'm throwing the first fireball. I'm swinging the sword first. That's how I operate as a player in the game. And I actually play more than I dungeon master. I like to be optimized within the bounds of my character's story. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Let's see if I can get to the bottom of this chat fairly quickly. Playstyle. The Power Gamer. Allergic to the PM Player's Handbook. Read the spells. Storyteller. Story Gamer. Okay. I'm not sure. You lost me, Seeker. I'm gone. Ugly weirdo. Did someone say my name? Well, I just did now. I don't know if I said your name. Okay. All right. I'm not sure what that's all about. Explaining that you as a DM don't use the 5e rules exactly as written to optimize the fun and invite them to join in. Yeah, that does help, Jared. You're right. Like, if you explain to them you're not going to use the rules exactly as written, they're going to then ask you how you roll on things, because that informs them on how they build their character. You love the instigator. The instigator can be fun, they can be funny, and they can be a huge problem. But we'll talk about the instigator maybe another day. Ugly weirdo. I'm the instigator, definitely. Instigated by my own PC's character death last Friday. That's another thing that instigators are prone to doing, is suicidal runs. Yeah, that's very true. Considered action is value, but I don't understand what that means. I don't understand ugly weirdo. Going to 11 is a reference to the film Spinal Tap, Fred. Oh, okay, Going to 11. I think I've watched part of Spinal Tap. I never got all the way through. No, I didn't. To be fair, there are certain movies, I love movies, but there's certain movies I can't watch, and that's one of them, unfortunately. Legendary Bundle Gamer. What's this? All right, what do we got here? Looking better than me, Fred. Okay, am I looking better than you? Okay. You turned 50 last week. Well, welcome to the club. My wife thinks D&D is a midlife crisis. I bet she does. I can assure you that when you have a midlife crisis, it won't be just Dungeons and Dragons. That will be part of the midlife crisis. It'll be a lot of other things. Okay. Happy belated birthday. Yes, absolutely. Happy birthday, Nacho, man. Okay. I'm almost to the bottom of the chat, which is amazing. Alpha Investments is the one who runs the Magic the Gathering collectors scene. I would look into the recording of the Hasbro and Wizards VP conversation. Look, I've seen enough of the article. I've watched the discussion, and yeah. Leroy Jenkins been bored. Yeah, Leroy Jenkins is an instigator. Like, that's definitely an instigator, but also that was deliberately to try to to get fame, and also boredom may be a factor as well. Hi Todd, how are you doing? My entire group just likes to kill stuff. Yeah, so they may not be power gamers, but they could well be slayers. They don't care about RP, much of the plot or anything else. They just want to kill stuff. Do you know? Do you know one of the things about slayers? And it's all right, okay. And it, here's the thing: once you've gone through your week, you've gone to school or work, you've paid the bills, you've dealt with all of the stuff that life is made out of. Sometimes the frustration, you just can't get it done by smoking tobacco or taking drugs or drinking alcohol. You have to let it out some other way. So some people go and play sports, and the sports is just an excuse to beat on somebody, basically. But slayers do it a different way. They put all their frustration into the monsters, and they just want to kill. So put monsters that can be monsters, okay? Being subtle with monsters, with slayers, is not a great idea, because that just won't change very much for them. Although it will create a lot of problems for them, which can be quite hilarious. But anyway, you're lucky your wife loves to play D&D as much as me. Good, cool. All right, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do next week. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do next week, and then from there we'll proceed. There's only a few of you here anyway. So we are leading into Christmas. The Christmas period leading up to Christmas is the worst time on YouTube usually for a creator. Anybody on YouTube who's creating videos and so forth, live streams, because the views go down. People are doing other things. So next week, I'm going to talk about the future of Dungeons & Dragons. I did this last year. I talked about what to expect in 2022. I'm going to talk about what you can expect from 2023, next year. So all the different things that are likely to be released. I will talk about the movie a little bit, probably very, very briefly. I'm going to make, because there's so much information, I will talk about some of the other things that are going to be released. I'll talk about the book reviews, book releases. I'll talk about the Unearthed Arcana stuff, and I'll also talk about the changing face of our D&D community on the internet, on YouTube. I'm going to talk a lot about that sort of stuff. I still haven't decided how I present this as a thumbnail or a title, but it probably will just be the future of D&D in 2023. And that's the topic for next week. Okay? So that's the thing I want to focus in on, so that you kind of got an idea of what to expect for next year. It's just sort of like a wrap everything up sort of live stream. So same time, same day, that'll be my feature next week. There is another thing that I've been toying with doing. And one of the things that I have been toying with doing, and I had promised myself I would not do it until Wizards of the Coast had finished developing 1D&D, that I would wait till 2024. Now I could wait till 2024, or I could give you a sample of where my head is at. And my head goes in funny places sometimes. And one of those areas that I've been wanting to go in, and I will do if I feel Wizards of the Coast balls things up and we don't want to play the new version of the game, and we want to stick with 5e, or we wind up playing something else, God help that, if that happens, right, is I want to actually show you how to rebuild the classes. And one of the aspects of rebuilding the classes for 5e is to show you how I think it should have been done. Now, whether I'm right, whether that's the play style and the way that you want to play, is a different story. It may not well be what you were after. In fact, I might be completely out of the loop in terms of what the current player base want. That's entirely possible. But I still want to do it. And I think it has a place in our community to actually look at, are we playing with the wrong rule system? So next week, I will talk about the future of Dungeons & Dragons. But after that, we're now leading into the new year. And into the new year is probably nobody going to be around. Nobody going to be around. So the feature on the same day and same time that I do this sort of stuff, before I go on holiday, is I'm going to show you how to rebuild some classes. And the one class I've wanted to rebuild for so long because it has annoyed me so much, it's not because I love the Warlock. That's actually got nothing to do with it. It's because the Warlock is so badly designed. For what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to work, it's so poorly put together. It's put together poorly at the beginning. Most of the 5e classes are actually put together quite well. When you're dealing with low levels, they're actually not too bad. Some of them get too many of their features early on, which allows them to become multi-class dips, which we shouldn't be allowing to have happen. But then multi-classing in my books should be ditched. We wouldn't need multi-classing if the classes were working the way they need to work. Okay? If they were built properly and built the way that they need to be built, you wouldn't need that at all. That's why we have subclasses in the first place, right? In fact, you wouldn't even need subclasses if the classes were built properly. That's where my head is going. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you how I would rebuild it. The worst aspect of your Warlock is after level 8. From about level 9 onward, it's a horrible mess. A horrible mess. So I have every intentions of potentially copying and pasting a lot of these rules into a Google document, going through, making some quite major adjustments to it, and then showing you how I would like to do things in the future. Now, how well that does, I expect it to do really poorly because there'll be nobody on YouTube. But that's where my head is at, is let's rebuild the Warlock so you can see where it really should be heading. And by doing that, it'll show you where all the other classes should be going. Because right now, the classes are not being built for necessarily everybody who's playing the game. That's being rebuilt for essentially your number crunchers, your min-maxers, your power gamers, your munchkins, your whatever you want to call it, the people who are focused on the rules, and the people who are the most prevalent on YouTube and social media. The vast majority of the community never ever see Unearthed Arcana, never even know that these surveys exist, and they're not putting any of their input into this because of the way that these surveys are being conducted, but also the way that the rules are forming, and they just don't use social media as much as the teenage through to late 30s community do. Now, they may well take up the majority of the number of people playing, but also too, there are a lot of people out there who don't play that way. So that's what I thought I would do, is I would show you how to rebuild a class so it does what it should do. And I can assure you it would I think a lot of people would assume that if I rebuild a class in a live stream, that I'm going to nerf everything. And that may well be the case in some respects. But in other respects, particularly at the top end from level 10 onward, it would be the absolute reverse. It would be the absolute reverse. Okay, so I just thought I'd let you know, New Year's, that's probably what you're going to wind up getting. Okay. Yeah, sometimes you just need to slay. Sometimes you just need to slay. Now there is, I have a couple of buddies who are going to be running a live stream today, and they're going to be talking about all the releases throughout the year. Now, so if people are really interested in checking up on that, you could. Oh, by the way, Todd is also a patron. Almost forgot, mate. Sorry about that. How's it going, Todd? If you're still here, also a patron and has supports me on Patreon. And that's the best place to do it, because that's where everything winds up going. That's where everything will wind up going. So I believe it's Flute Sloot, and now does anybody know Mr. Welsh? Mr. Welsh does lore videos, and you'll probably find that he is going to be doing a chat with Jordan from Flute Sloot. and that should be hopefully happening reasonably soon. I don't know if they've necessarily, I don't remember if he's actually scheduled it or not, but it's going to be happening. Can I remember the time zone? Let me give you the links to his channel. I'll give you the links to his channel so you can go and check it out. I won't be doing anything live today after this, primarily because I'm actually going to be chatting with Wally DM in private. And a lot of this is about our own channel stuff, but also about the Dungeon Master Roundtable and like just, you know, how to navigate into the future. So that'll be more of a private discussion that we have. But these guys are going to be talking in a public stream, and I don't remember if they posted exactly when it's going to happen. Hints. What do you think? No, that's not there. I'm sure that they had told me that they were going to be doing something today. I'm sure it's today. I just can't find a link to it. And knowing Mr. Welsh, he's probably not put anything on his community tab either. Let's have a look if he got it here. Here we go. Found it. There it is. I'm going to put this here. I'm going to copy this little statement so you know when it's happening. There we go. So it's going to be occurring. So check out the D&D year in review with myself, which is going to be Mr. Welsh, not me. It'll be Mr. Welsh. That's Glenn and Jordan from Flute Sloot at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, as we give our thoughts on this year's release. Why everyone seems disappointed with what we got. So they're going to talk about all those book releases and all the things that got put out. So if you're interested, go check them out. If it's 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, that would be, if it's Mountain Daylight Time or Mountain Standard Time, that would be 6 p.m. And if you're in California on the East Coast, not the East Coast, so Pacific Standard Time would be 5 p.m. And if you were dealing with is it the East Coast or is it Miami? Eastern Standard Time would be 8 p.m. This is North America. I will be busy doing other things around that time. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that for anybody who is interested. And I think this is a good point for me to stop. And I will catch up with everybody in a couple of days when I start doing the next Lost Mine of Fendel live stream. Okay. So I just want to say thank you to all of my patrons for supporting me. Thank you for Dan for the super chat. I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. And really, you know, what makes this continue on is the support around Patreon, primarily because YouTube doesn't really do very much. That's just how it works. Thank you for everybody who took part and commented in the live stream today and has been watching the live stream or re-watching the live stream if you're not here live. Thank you very much. Anybody who's been watching my edited videos and my shorts, thank you for putting up for the shorts. Yes, Mr. Rex and AJ will return to the channel sometime very, very soon. Okay, you will see more of them. And wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, or the night, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.